It's now time for Remember When with Uncle John. John Guess, Ouachita County's resident storyteller and local historian. Sit back now and enjoy a walk down memory lane as John recalls the days of yesteryear in his own unique way. You never know, some of it might even be true. So here's Uncle John, along with his trusty sidekick, Kelly Blair.
Back on Remember When with Uncle John. Well, here we are. We made it. We have reached finish line Friday, and around here, these parts, that means we have got a top tune to be talked about. Lay it on us, Johnny.
Well, yesterday I was honoring my good friend Bobby Rife, who I met in the fall of 1969 when we joined the fourth grade together, at Chittister.
Yes, sir.
And the number one song in the country at that time for a whole month was written by a man named Shel Silverstein, who wrote jingles for kids.
Okay.
And he wrote a song called A Boy Named Sue.
Oh, and a boy from Arkansas, from Kingsland, Arkansas, recorded it.
Made that song number one in the land for a solid month.
I can't imagine anybody else pulling that off but Johnny Cash.
There's a meme on Facebook now that says, in Johnny Cash's day, A Boy Named Sue was a whole lot worse than it is today. You could get away with that today, but 53 years ago, it was a hard deal,
Yes, sir.
It's about a young man's quest for revenge on a father who abandoned him at 3 years old, and the only contribution he gave him was naming him Sue, so he'd be a tough guy.
He'd have to grow up tough.
But I remember being, 9 years old and hearing that song and thinking that's a great song.
Yeah, I just laughed my butt off first time.
My daddy laughed about it. Of course, like you said, nobody could pull that off but Johnny Cash.
Yeah, and I can't see even some of the other greats like George Jones or whatever. I just don't see them having his same kind of flair.
And the story I read about it was that when he rehearsed the song, he said this is going to be huge.
It's going to be big.
But nobody could have pulled that off but Johnny Cash.
Yep.
And the live version, of course they've got the recorded version, the studio version. And then they've got the live version, which is what you hear on the radio.
Yes, the live version is what they play.
He recorded that at one of the prisons, San Quentin, I think, maybe.
Yep, absolutely.
But the studio version is not near as good as the live version, which is very seldom the case.
Absolutely.
But it's a great song. I want to throw that out there to my good buddy Bobby down in Florida, because I'm sure we laughed about that song 53 years ago.
No question about it. And I think if I ever have a son, I'm going to name him Bill or George, anything but Sue. That's going to wrap up Remember When with Uncle John for today, but we'll be right back here next week ready to do all over again. Thanks to Sherwin-Williams House Paint, the Prescott Raceway, the Shopper's Guide, ProMed Ambulance Service, and be sure to go find us on any of our podcast platforms, folks. Apple Podcast, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google. You can find us on YouTube or, check out our Facebook page as well.
See you next week, Kelly.
You've been listening to Remember When with Uncle John on Y95. This broadcast can be heard each weekday morning at 6:45 on South Arkansas's favorite station, Y95.